Yeah, everyone, welcome to the live session for this month. It is hosted by Mystiko, and our speaker of today is Daniel, and he is going to to lead the session. So I wish you all a lot of fun. And if you have questions, use your microphone, use the chat, whatever. Ask your question, and he's trying to answer your question. So have fun and enjoy.
Well, thanks, man. So, guys, this is the title of the presentation, tips and tricks, and it is. I will try to show the whole process from starting just installing the software to
Just a question,
actually.
Daniel.
Sorry,
Just a question here.
tell me.
This this portal with what you have given in the link, is it using PHP 7 or PHP 5?
I think PHP 7 with.
Okay.
This is why I told you to use XAMPP because it is installing it by default. So it's simpler if you just download XAMPP, install it, and then go to the page I sent you and
Hmm.
follow the video, which is really easy. It's
Okay. Thank
five
you.
minutes. Okay, so this is the title of the presentation. Well, a little bit of background. My name is Daniel. Well, this is my nick, star code, obviously. Uh, there you have my Twitter and my blog. And as of today, I got 7 CVs, but I should have more, to be honest. And I would like to thank both Viserion and, well, the community of Mystiko uh, to provide me this opportunity to talk to you and explain what kind of stuff I do when I have free time, which is not normally, but I have fun doing this thing. Um, so this is a little bit the introduction. All right. First of all, whenever you are trying to get a 0 day, uh, don't expect to find it without effort first, understanding the language you are trying to find a vulnerability on. Why I say this? Because when I started with this thing, and it was like in January, uh, I started directly and I started downloading stuff without caring if I understood what that stuff actually did. And it was a huge mess and a chaos. And so after a while I just decided to move on and start a coding course, learn the basics, and once I was done with that, I then moved to the to the interesting part. But I cannot insist enough in this because really it is useful. So uh, first you need to map how the app is laid out, and it is really very important before you are doing anything, and even after you have installed the software you're trying to test. It is really important to look at the docs. The docs are super clarifying, are the thing that you need the most, and even sometimes you find the stuff in the docs. I mean, for example, an RC that I will disclose hopefully within this weekend. uh, I got it just like that. And another thing, another RC, I got it thanks to documentation. Why? Because sometimes you have seen stuff out there in CTFs, in wherever, but you end up finding that exact same stuff in real software. For example, uh, as one of these examples, this app that I tell you, the second one, when I was reading the docs, I realized that it was using a template engine, And using that template engine, you could trigger code execution happily without a normal user, without having to be admin or anything like that. So it is just important to say it. Also, it is important to note root handling. Not all apps are the same. Not all apps are like the directory structure you are used to. Uh, in the sense of folder, subfolder, another subfolder, and the file. Some apps have this thing in a custom way, and it's important, to go. For example, here, this is a PHP framework, you may know, Laravel. And this is, for example, the documentation regarding the routing. So where to go and where things actually are. So this is important also because there are super complex apps that you may, freak out. You could freak out if you see the trying to see where stuff is actually well where it is located. So apart from this, let's go to the next one. Whoa. All right. So next step I will do normally is generate requests, but don't. This is just a joke. Don't do denial of service. What I mean by generating requests is set up a burp and start using the app as if you were a normal user and test everything. Generate requests for everything. So you will get a nice HTTP history in in your burp, and then you will have the option of searching for specific stuff that you will later need. Uh, it's just a way of having everything located, which parameters are used where, etc. And you should try always like to note down which request was generated in which endpoint or which action that you did generated which request. And that's really easy to do. You just click a button or input whatever and go to Verb, go to the HTTP history and note down whatever is appearing there. So once that part is done, that was the damn fuzzing part, I guess. Let's start with the actual approach or the actual black box approach. So first of all, what I would do is make a list of functionalities. So go to every submenu, to every tab, try uh, everything. Try not to let any option uncovered or untouched. That's the idea, the main idea. So this is what I told you before. Try to see which stuff generate which stuff, which requests are generating what, and also, if possible, in which order. Um, Also, observe and take good notes. I will insist a lot in this. Uh, some apps are really huge, like really, really complex, and it is just not possible, or at least for me, to remember everything. Where was it? How did it work? Which parameter was doing what? It's really, really hard to actually remember all that stuff. So it is important. You just need to take a piece of paper and start writing down whatever you need to keep this thing clear. Also, about functionality testing, the main focus of the presentation wasn't to to talk about black box testing, but obviously I need to mention it as I use it. I use it also. the idea was to talk about white box, and we will focus on that. But because the black box testing is a world, is huge, and it cannot be contained or explained in a single presentation. So this is what I tell you to do. This is my advice. Whenever you are trying a specific functionality, go to HackerOne reports. This is like a Google Doc, and Google the functionality name, and you will be provided with a huge list of reports of people who have found vulnerabilities and the way they did it. It's like the best source of write-ups for specific functionalities. Uh, well, you should be like this guy, taking notes. So let's get a little bit serious. Um, this is not a complete list, of course. It's just like a general idea. This is a list of functionalities you should test. There may be others, and it is really application dependent. The type of functionalities you will be testing, but these are ones that are really common. Logins and also how other pages handle authentication. This is important, and I mentioned this and because it is not just you login and that's it, because some pages programmers sometimes forget to do the proper session validation in some pages, and you may find that administrative pages, or or pages with sensitive information doesn't really don't really enforce authentication. So you can directly go and set whatever or read whatever, and it is important to test this. Also, file uploads. We are talking today about PHP, and you know that PHP and file uploads aren't good friends in terms of security. So always test this. If you see one of those, go straight for it. Also, well, any settings pages that you can create or edit stuff. Also, password resets. Password reset pages are a really common target, and if they are not properly built, many times they have logical flaws, in the way they work. So always test that too. Second factor authentication and functionalities. This one is really, really obvious, and this one is really common in routers and network monitoring tools, etc. Like the ping, for example, ping or other functionalities that you normally use with the web app, but in the background they are just using operating system utilities, and they are most of them, not most, well, a lot of them are vulnerable to command injection. Also, I would recommend you to test it as if it was a normal pen test, like a really black box. But if you are trying really to understand the logic of something, try to have one window with the page you want to test, and another window with the source code corresponding to that page in a specific. Okay, so this is what I mentioned before. So this is distinguishing authenticated actions. Obviously, you need to know how a failure and a success look like. I mean, for example, in case you wanna imagine there is an endpoint that when you make a GET request to it, it discloses sensitive information, for example, for a router. All right. So you need to know how what is the response when that kind of request fails. So, for example, for one app would be a 401. For other apps, it may be a redirect to the main page. It is interesting to know this. After this, this is just a way. I normally test this by hand, but you can even automate it with burp and some bash scripting. So let me let's I'm going to capture whatever request. Let me see. All right, for example, this one. Well, let's first turn intercept off because I need to generate some requests, just like I told you before. All right. You see. All right. So what can we do with this? We can just go here. And for example, let's see. For example, imagine you want to test everything in this directory in particular. Imagine this is an API endpoint or whatever, or the root directory for the web app or whatever. So you can, for example, go here to the target tab, sitemap, and copy URLs in this branch. Oh, all right. And you can, for example, so you see all the URLs are copied. And now, once you get all of them in a single file, you can use, for example, this one-liner. Well, maybe others. This is just an example, but this is just doing a curl and seeing the answer. Outputting the answer of the response of the request. This is useful because we can see which ones have a different response, because this is by default. When you do this in particular, you aren't passing any parameter or anything. You are just doing a raw request to the to the directory or the endpoint that you want. So it is this is just a way to test if you are getting it authenticated and also unauthenticated, or just authenticated, or even pages which you can see only if you are unauthenticated. This is a way of separating it into groups, because some requests may be useful, not directly. I mean, maybe they are not directly vulnerable, but maybe for another exploit or another feature or whatever, you can use it later on to accomplish a command execution or whatever. All right. So the white box approach. White box, or at least for me or for anyone preparing for the away course of offensive security, is a synonym of grep. Yes, grepping a lot every day. So let's start with grep. For you guys who have never done this before, the way to look for vulnerable stuff in a white box approach is just grepping for functions that are dangerous if they are used in a unsafe way. So, for example, if you are trying to get an RCE, these are, you know, the common functions you could look for: exec, selexec, system, pass through, etc. For example, let's see. Okay, can you see my screen better now?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. All right. So great. Sometimes just don't want to work. Oh, come on. All right. So here you see the output, but you know it is executing anyway. This is the kind of functions we're interested in. The echo, sorry, exec, selexec, system, pass through, popen. The majority of these, for example, these ones, just you can enter a command and that's it. There are another ones which also lead to remote code execution, which are more unknown, like create function that lets you create your own function. And this one, which is just a way that you can call, for example, an already defined function like exec and pass it a parameter. You know, there are many. For LFI and RFI, you can grep for this. Require ones, include ones. These ones, there are a lot which are insanitized. I can say it by experience. Also, file uploads. You can grep for this function, move uploaded file. This is useful because many times when you upload a file, it is uploaded to a temporary directory. So many programmers use this function to actually move it to where they want it to be, the file, I mean. Insecure deserialization and serialize. Whoa. All right. And also XXC. I've read a lot of source code review guys and this kind of stuff, but not many people talk about XXC. Mostly in PHP, only things regarding XML handling and you know, processing, etc., are done with this PHP DOM, simple XML, and XML reader. And if you grab the functions in this, I think they are modules. You can end up with an XXC, and an XXC is most likely an LFI if you know, if you can use it correctly. Also, SQL injection. Most people only try select because it's like the most known MySQL instruction. But whoa, there are others like update, insert into, etc. And here, whoa, and here I put a regex with grep. This is just a way to, for example, in case you wanna grep for select, there will be some times that by other reasons there may be select another stuff, you know, another string saying select in the source code. But you want select and you want from, no? For example, this dot and this star means whatever, like select whatever from it's just like a way of grepping for these two things at once. It's just like a way to make it more precise, the grep. All right. So how to grep? Obviously, the target of or the goal of every code review should be to get RCE, and obviously we need to start grepping for RC-like functions. I mean, there are even regular expressions used for XSS. Don't start with that. So start directly with trying to catch the big fish. For example, this is this command here that I put here. This is just finding in a recursive way all the files ending in PHP and grepping whatever function name. This could be exec or selexec or require or whatever. Also, when you deal with really big code bases, you need to filter crap a lot. There are many stuff that it is useless, and it is just making the real bug harder to spot. So these are some flags that use that grep has. This, for example, excludes all files ending in .js. This is useful in case you need to use grep in an independent way from this command. So, because, for example, the eval function, an eval function in a JS and many JS files don't have like spaces. They are all just one bunch of JavaScript. So they screw your screen a lot. So for example, when you're grepping for an eval function, you should definitely use this. Also, there you may find in some software this thing. You may find that it is using something by default or some library that you don't want to test, but you are getting results of that library and you don't want to to have all that stuff in your screen. So you can use also this flag to exclude that. Also, you should do this pipe into grep dash v, and this is used. Whoa, let me. All right. For example, let me put an example. All right. For example, this kind of stuff. This instruction is executing an SQL query, but it has nothing to do with code execution. So, for example, in case you want to filter this, you can grep for what you really want. Grep, let's say, exec, I guess. And you can pipe it to grep -v, for example, MySQL. So whatever contains this thing and does not contain these things will be printed to the screen, and it is a way to just having things more clear. So now, if you have found a vulnerable function or a function that you think is vulnerable, but you need to actually test, this is what you need to do. Go all the way up in the call tree, because many times programmers don't really put that much attention in functions which are in the as an example, in the root of the tree. They pay attention to functions which are directly callable by the user or the whatever, the administrator or whatever, because those are the ones they feel the user or the admin or whatever is interacting with, but they are also interacting with those second level or third level functions, and it is important to go all the way up and find where exactly that function is being called, and if you can interact with it in any way. So up to where up to all this stuff. Here I don't know if you know much of PHP, but if this is a global, well, super global array that just makes reference to parameters in a get request. This is just the same, but for post. And these are cookies, which most people think this is not a, like a way you can hack anything. But sometimes you will find that a cookie is passed to whatever file upload or whatever stuff, and sometimes you can leverage a cookie to get whatever code execution or a local file inclusion or whatever. Okay, so also requests. This is more general because this makes reference to all these three. Another approach of what I'm just saying now is to directly search, well, grep for all of this. But the thing is that I tend to not do so because there are maybe in a medium-sized web app I may do it, but with really big apps is a mess because you will find hundreds of these, and following the code is just too difficult. So I tend to go the reverse approach. First, find the vulnerable function, and then go all the way up. Also, files. All right. Files. This is well, a way. There are others, but this is one of the ways using files, this variable, that people upload files to a PHP app. So many times it isn't checked. For example, imagine you are in the typical create, read, update, delete, whatever app. Many times, for example, if you need to kind of display, for example, the name or store it in a database to later load it in another page, the image, for example, that the user has uploaded, it is many times passed to SQL statements. And this just means that if there is no filtering at all, you can get a SQL injection right away. So, just to know this. Also, sessions, I haven't seen this so much used as a possible attack vector, but they're also there. Okay, so once you have, once you have already found, the function, you have traced it. The thing is, well, is it reachable by a user? Can I make a request, authenticate it or not, and I can reach it? So this is just the only process. No, if you can't, you're wasted. Then that's a dead end. So you need to go other way. If it's reachable, you just need to analyze is if it is filtering your input in any way. If no, you can be like this guy, so happy. And if yes, you can be like Russell Crowe and start, fighting with the app. So, bypassing defenses. A defense is not, this is not, nothing is unconquerable, to say it. For example, if you have a PHP extension disallowed in a file upload, you can always use these kind of extensions, which are others and are also executed by PHP, to filter many inputs. For example, for command injection, many web apps in PHP use this function, is prec_match, which is really like a whitelist, a regular expression whitelist, let's say. And for example, if the PHP version is incorrect, you can see here, this is a whitelist with a, this is something you will normally see and get really discouraged because it is, like too concrete and too hard. But for example, in this case, you can see that if you, instead of passing the parameter as, whatever equals whatever, you pass it as an array, you completely bypass this thing, and you can execute code. For example, I mean that filtering function is not the end of a possible book's life. I don't know if that is easy to understand. All right, so example defenses when trying to include files. This is just for include, require, etc. You can use, for example, a null byte that many people uses this to terminate strings, because if you have done ever a buffer overflow, you know that the null byte is always a bad character because it always truncates buffers, and it happens the same with PHP. But not many people know that, for example, you can use question marks to pass the last part as a parameter. This is, for example, the null byte, and this trick is, for example, when you are including a file and it is appending .php, which is really common, well, not defense, but a really common thing that programmers do. Also, disabled functions can be bypassed. I mean, sometimes you try to use exec or use selexec or whatever, and you're really frustrated, but they exist bypass for disabled functions. And even if I remember correctly, not too long ago, a new bypass was found for the disabled functions in PHP. And also for really weird stuff, I really like this PHP fuck.
Question.
Tell me.
The thing with appending PHP.
Yes.
Could you clarify that? So if I were to add an question mark, the appended PHP would not be evaluated, or?
Yes, for example, imagine you are trying to include, let's see, for example,
Because I tend to see that in real engagements.
yes, it is like really common. Let's see. Oh, I missed this thing. file. Okay, let me. I'm just doing the example here. For example, in PHP .ini, or well, the config file for PHP, there is a configuration or a directive or whatever it's called to allow URL, including files from external URLs, for example. In case this thing is enabled, imagine it is not PHP, it is not HTML, whatever extension.
Say JPEG.
JPEG, for example. whatever extension. So if it is trying to include a file from an URL and appending this, normally you cannot execute code with a JPEG file. So what can you do? If you pass an URL, like, for example, let's see, like attacker.com and payload, if you pass a URL like this, you will get the PHP file will load payload.jpg. But if you add the question mark, it would just treat the JPEG as a parameter. You would it will treat the JPEG as a parameter, and it will get executed the PHP payload, for example.
Thank you. That's good to know.
You're welcome. PHP FAQ. All right. For really difficult web white lists or black lists or whatever, this exists also, and you cannot is a way to bypass all the alphanumeric related black lists or white lists or whatever. This is I believe, I don't remember exactly, but this is using XOR to, just to, this is, for example, you can see here that this is executing PHP info. And there are another, out there, I don't remember now, but there are other ways to execute PHP code without really invoking the function like, like exec or cell exec or whatever. So this is good to know when we have to deal with really restrictive environments. Okay, let's see. Okay, so if you got the vulnerability, now obviously it's trying to write an exploit or a proof of concept. This is something I don't have a really deep knowledge of, but it is something that is needed. I mean, I see many people, for example, in ExploitDB, if you guys want to check, there are many people who just copy the vulnerable request raw, completely raw. They copied it and send it to ExploitDB, and that's really hard to actually replicate. So it is useful to write a proof of concept, and this is the best resources I found to learn this. This is just ExploitDB, and in ExploitDB you can filter, if you, in case you didn't know, you can filter by the content, and here in the content you can see with Python, these are all exploits written in Python. Python is like the you know, the most common language used to write proof of concepts, apart from Ruby in case of Metasploit modules. What more? Let's see. I cannot. Oh, all right. Also, well, in case you didn't know, the majority of proof of concepts are done using requests. So these are the official docs of requests, and well, a really good tutorial I found about this module. Also, so let's go to the final tips. Oh, let me first. Slideshow. I don't get why this is failing. I cannot put it in a complete screen. All right, let me reopen it really quick. Oh, here, okay. Okay, so final tips. Many people try to go very fast. It was my case when I started. So don't rush through the code. Assume that you aren't going to find a vulnerability in 5 minutes. Sometimes you will be lucky, but it's not the the general thing that the most common thing that it happens. Also, take as much notes as you can, and overall, I say this related to what I first said. That I cannot really remember everything. How did it work? Where was located every single functionality, etc. But also, I mean it because this thing, because of the point 6, that you should never, well, say this is worthless, this is useless, this is isn't going to be useful for anything, because sometimes you find well, whatever bug or whatever, and you need to change it, because if you read some write-ups out there of people finding vulnerabilities in PHP code, you will notice that many people don't just find one vulnerability with one insecure call to one function or whatever. They chain stuff. They get, for example, an XXS plus a CSRF or whatever, can end up in a remote code execution. And also, it is worth noting that it's not only a matter of mini bugs like cross-site scripting. It's also a thing about functionality, because there are functionalities that have particular ways of working that you could use later to get higher impact vulnerabilities. Also, again, read the docs. This is I insist in this because I found two RCs just reading the docs. I spent a lot of time grepping for vulnerable functions, testing the web app as if it was like a normal black box testing, and doing even a combination of both. And the really what it ended up working, it was like I was searching for some functionality and I decided to read the docs. And when I was reading the docs, I noticed that there was something really, really, it smells to RCE a lot. Also, this is the way I do it, but many people, I think I do it this way also. Get a checklist. Whenever you are testing anything, you should get a checklist of what you have tested in which endpoint or in which whatever. And it is useful. It is useful to have a checklist because sometimes, and normally with really huge applications, that you miss something. You skip a functionality, you whatever, and that's just a scope that you have like denied to yourself, because and it is something that may or may not have a vulnerability, but it's something you need to do. Also, the one of the things I find like really important or really useful is asking yourself good questions. Whenever you are testing a web application, and especially when you are trying to get into the internals of any app, it is crucial to make good questions, because good questions lead to good test cases, and good test cases lead to you understanding fully what is going on. And also, and I say this because you can always do it with the source code, but the source code sometimes it has so many reference to things before, things declared after, and like it's sometimes it's such a mess to follow all the code. Where is it going, etc. That it is just easier to not to reverse engineer that using the code, but with just behavior. And this is why I tell you to ask questions to yourself about how it works. Okay, so resources. For those of you guys who don't know this is the OWASP code review guide, and this is like the only, I guess, or one of the most complete guides I've seen of about code review and white box testing, because it is just the majority of materials you will find out there about white box testing. It is more focused on the quality of code and optimizing stuff and so, but not really focus in the security aspect of stuff. So this is why resources like this are invaluable, really. Also, the web application hackers handbook, this is great in general, but the second version, it is just the majority of the chapters are focused on black box testing. But I guess it was on chapter 20. I don't remember exactly right now. Or in chapter 20 or 21, there are like 30 or 40 pages especially dedicated to code review, and this is good to read that. Also, this thing, grep bugs, like we've seen before when I showed you the SQL injection, grepping with a regular expression. This also exists. These regular expressions can be set up for really any bug. I mean, you can directly grep for a function, or you can grep for more complicated stuff using regex. And here you have a really good list of stuff to test. Well, let me directly go for PHP. Okay. So here you have even more stuff. For example, whoa, a lot of functions related to SQL queries. You know, this is really complete and huge. You see, it is here. We are seeing it for PHP, but it has really for JSP, Python, JavaScript, Java, Cold Fusion, a lot of languages. Also, the CDI, which is, in case you don't know this, this is the 0-day initiative, which is like an enterprise that buys 0 days to researchers and then discloses advisories, etc. And their blog is really good because sometimes vulnerabilities that you wouldn't really think that are possible, or how someone, I'm sure you have all in some point you have read a vulnerability which is really cool, the effect it has, like for example a remote code execution, but it is just like the proof of concept and almost anything more. The version vulnerable, the software name, and that's it. This is really bad because you don't understand the process. But here you can go down the blog and you can see how this was discovered. Begin of you can see here a really good resource to sum up. And this is another random blog that I follow. So thanks for for hearing me talk like if I was mad about this topic. And whatever you want, guys, if you have any doubt or want to comment something about anything we have seen, this is the moment. And also here you have my Twitter in case you want to discuss anything after the presentation. So any questions?
I have one question.
Tell me.
Okay, so from the moment you download the application to the moment you find a bug, I mean, how much time does it approximately take you to test the app until you finally give up or test another one or something like that? I don't know if...
Yes, I understand the point, yes.
Okay.
So it depends. For example, I've tested a lot of WordPress plugins, which are really small in terms of lines of code. And I don't really give up by, that reasons. But when I test something which is bigger, I normally set like a... I don't know how to explain this. Like a maximum time I want to spend on something in particular. And when I mean something in particular, I mean functionalities or a specific tab or whatever. So I set like a, not like an alarm, but similar. And I say, for example, for this page, I want to spend here a maximum of 5 hours, of 6 hours, or whatever. So I kind of divide the app into parts, so I can choose what to test in what should I dedicate more time to. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So, any other question or anything?
Seems there are no more questions.
No more questions. All right. So.
Nicely done, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly was like, seeing this presentation like someone speaking at Black Hat. It was like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I was
totally agree.
Yes, good
Next
job.
talk will be a Black Hat.
Yeah, I think we should see Starcode presenting, not Starcode, but Daniel presenting at Starcode in near
Definitely.
time. Yeah.
Well, guys, I was trying not to make grammar mistakes or anything because my English is not that good, but
You could have fooled me.
all right. So this is also well, I could this video was like a joke to say like we are going to get Swifty now. If you guys have seen Rick and Morty, that I
Oh, of
totally recommend.
course.
I totally recommend. And I was saying that we are going to get Swifty because I have set up a web application that I told you in the beginning, and if you guys aren't tired or whatever, we can test it for like an hour or something, and let's see if we can find anything. So
It's good to me.
cool. So you guys, well, tell me if you could install the application during the the talk. Oh, let's see. Oh, I don't know how to put this in a. I guess here. Okay. Okay, so that was the PowerPoint. So, so meetings. All right. Give me like 5 minutes or so that I need to go to the bathroom and have some drink, and I'm back with the live part of the session.
Right on.
Okay. Wow. This was just Zoom. Oh. For example, you have an static function, for example, and you find it vulnerable, for example, to RC. You need to know how the app is going to call it, because a function like this isn't called like this. A static function, for example, in PHP is called more like this. So this is why, for this kind of stuff, I insist to get the basics. I don't know if you guys want to look for any other to look at any of the other functionalities, and I would normally, and I would want to follow the same workflow that I described to you in the presentation, but due to the to the huge failure of my systems, we can only do this. So if you guys want to test anything, oh, again, the chat. Where is the chat? Participants, more chat. Okay.
So I have one question.
Yes, tell me.
Whenever you get a code base, how do you actually approach the whole code base as a whole? Like, what do you go for first, and how do you prioritize it basically?
For a large web application, you mean?
Yes.
All right. Sometimes, as you said, there are stuff which is so huge to test. I mean, for example, if I grabbed in some apps, if I grabbed directly, for example, for exec, I would get a huge result, and it would be impossible to filter it without many effort. So in that time, what I normally try to do is if you have, for example, a directory structure in the sense, for example, we have seen admin, right? For example, admin and authenticated, but there are many other apps that have stuff really separated in a lot of folders. No, for example, what I try doing is, running all the enumeration and doing all these things just in a single folder, and then going to the next etc, and just trying to see which of those are most likely to have a vulnerability. For example, if I see a folder in which one of the files is called, for example, file upload.php, I'm going to go directly for it. So I don't know if that clarifies anything.
Okay.
One question.
Tell me.
Do you use code analysis tools?
Static analysis tools, yes and no. Let me explain myself. When I started, I used them but I find that they are so imprecise in the sense of they just grep. Many of them just do the same we are doing now. They grep, but they don't filter. They don't do anything, and the majority of them, or the ones that are free and so, they just grep a lot, but they have some outputs that are impossible to sort with with really big apps. And I was when I started, I couldn't just handle that, and I started doing it manually to filter stuff. As I see them, as I see the results, I was filtering them because it was impossible in other way. So anything else, guys? Any functionality you want to test? Questions, comments, things you think should be done in a better way? Nope. All right. So if you guys want, we can end the sorry. We can end the session here, and here is my what say. As I told you, this is my Twitter here. In case you want to talk about whatever, well, you can also reach me in the in Telegram in the Mystiko group. But whatever, you can guys contact me for whatever reason. If you guys have an idea, a project, or whatever, here I am. So I think that's all for today. Viserion, I don't know if you are still there. You want to say anything? Oh.
Yeah, I'm still here. If there are no more questions, then I would like to thank you in name of all the people of Mystiko. It was a great session. I think everyone enjoyed it much. You delivered good content. The presentation was clear. The live part was also very nice and clear. And yeah, I hope everyone from the Mystiko team enjoyed this talk. And yeah, thank you for your presentation.